Libra, you are in danger and you don't know it. You think you'd recognize the danger in front of you. But what if it's been inside your home for years, disguised as care? Libra senses the tension in a room before any words are spoken, anticipates the other person's discomfort before they even realize it. This radar is precise, fast, almost invisible, and it's because it's so good at detecting things from the outside that it's never been pointed inward. There's an alarm ringing softly inside you, for so long that it's become part of the silence of the house. By the end of this video, you'll understand this sound. Think about it. You can pinpoint the exact moment a friend started feeling left out of a conversation. You can sense before a word is spoken, when two people are arguing before even arriving. You can pick up on the tension that no one else notices at a dinner party, a meeting, a 30-second phone call, and yet you might not know how long you've been exhausted or why. This kind of perception didn't come from nowhere. At some point early on, you learned that it was safer to perceive the atmosphere around you than to wait and find out later. Perhaps it was in a house where silence spoke louder than words. Perhaps it was in a childhood where reading someone's mood was the difference between a peaceful day and a difficult one. And so, without consciously choosing, you built a radar that was too good. This radar grew with you. It became faster, more discreet, more efficient. Today, it works all the time, behind the scenes, adjusting the emotional climate of any environment you enter. A kind word here, a joke to ease the tension there. An all right said even before you checked if everything was, in fact, all right. Nobody sees this work. Nobody appreciates this work, because it was designed from the beginning to be invisible. And that's exactly where the problem lies, because a system designed to never be noticed is also a system that's easy to forget, even by those who operate it. Over time, you stop noticing the effort you spend regulating your surrounding environment. And, along with that, you stop noticing something else, that your own internal thermometer has been registering a number you've never stopped to look at for a long time. There's a sound that's been playing inside you for so long that it's stopped sounding like an alarm. It's become just part of the background silence, like that refrigerator hum you only notice when someone turns off the power. A small annoyance here, a swallowed desire there, a phrase you kept to yourself so as not to unsettle the moment. All of this has been accumulating, layer upon layer, without any of it seeming serious enough to deserve attention. And perhaps that's exactly why you never called it danger, because danger in your case never looked like an emergency. It looked like routine, like an ordinary day in which you, once again, put someone else's well-being ahead of your own, and called it kindness, when perhaps it had long ago been another name, a name you haven't yet had the courage to write, not even himself. And perhaps it's time to give that a name. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose isn't about luck, nor about predictions floating in the air. It's about something much closer to what you just felt. How to recognize within your own Libra nature the exact moment when caring for others began to replace caring for yourself. It treats balance not as a pretty picture for others to see, but as an internal, silent practice that begins long before any visible gesture of harmony. It's less about learning to calm the environment and more about learning to listen to your own signal before it turns into exhaustion. If you've made it this far, it's quite likely that you still have that name on the tip of your tongue, trying to understand exactly where this story began to repeat itself in your life. This discomfort you feel now is not a mistake. It's your own sensor, perhaps for the first time in a long time trying to speak to you. And this kind of recognition rarely lasts long if it's not addressed soon, before routine drowns out that sound again. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And before we continue, Can you remember the last time you put your own needs ahead of someone else's without guilt? Tell us in the comments. The truth is, no one taught you to recognize it when it happened. No one told you that there's a type of tiredness that doesn't come from a bad night's sleep or a difficult day at work, but from the silent accumulation of years regulating the emotional climate of everyone around you. A tiredness that doesn't ask for a night's rest. It asks for something deeper. Imagine a battery that slowly discharges without any low battery warning flashing on the screen. It simply loses power imperceptibly day after day, until one day, for no apparent reason, it simply stops. And everyone around wonders what happened, because from the outside, everything seemed to be working normally until the very last second. This is the kind of exhaustion Libras tend to carry. It doesn't warn you, it doesn't make a scene, it just accumulates while you keep smiling, adjusting, smoothing things over, being the person who holds everything together so that others don't even notice there was something to hold back. And the worst part, you yourself may not notice, because you've learned to call it just being like that, instead of recognizing that there was a signal waiting for a response for a long time. Notice how this tiredness never arrives alone. It comes disguised as other things. Sometimes it seems like sudden impatience with something small. Sometimes it seems like a strange urge to disappear from everyone for a while, for no apparent reason. Sometimes it just seems like a heavier weight on your shoulders at the end of the day, difficult to explain, difficult to justify, because from the outside, nothing extraordinary happened. Just another ordinary day, full of small adjustments that nobody asked for, but that you made anyway. And there is an important difference between being tired and being alert. A body in constant alert doesn't rest properly, even when sleeping. A mind that has spent years scanning its environment for signs of imbalance doesn't completely switch off, not even during downtime. It continues, at a lower level, monitoring. And it is this continuous invisible monitoring that consumes energy that no one has ever accounted for, because no one has ever called it by its proper name. There's a common scene you might recognize. The end of a social event, a family gathering, a dinner with friends, moments when everyone around you seems to have had fun, relaxed, enjoyed each other's company, and you, on your way home, feel a tiredness that doesn't match the lightness of the evening, as if you'd been working the whole time, even without realizing exactly what you were doing. This is the kind of effort that never appears on a to-do list, but consumes as much as any visible work, perhaps even more, because no one, not even you, acknowledges that it existed. Recognizing this specific type of fatigue is the first step in ceasing to treat it as a personality trait and starting to treat it as a signal that, like any other, can be respected in time. This kind of nameless tiredness has an explanation, and it's not about going to bed earlier. It's about understanding why you learned to ignore your own signals in the first place. That's exactly what the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose helps unlock, recognizing with precision the moments when your energy was being given away before you even realized you were giving it. It's not about stopping taking care of others. It's about stopping doing it at your own expense without realizing the price. This kind of recognition rarely comes twice with the same intensity. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. There's an image that perfectly describes what happens within many relationships that Libra maintains. Imagine a room decorated with extreme care, each cushion in its right place, every detail thought out to please those who enter. Visitors compliment it, feel welcome, and relax in that environment. But if you pay attention, you realize that there's no corner of that room reserved for the person who actually lives there. This is what happens when Libra dedicates so much of their own energy to maintaining the balance of a relationship that they gradually cease to appear in it as a whole person. It's not a conscious choice. It's a habit that grows slowly. Giving in on what seems small, postponing what seems inconvenient, choosing silence over discomfort, until one day someone asks what you really want, and the answer takes longer than it should to arrive. Because at some point you stop decorating that space for yourself. And the question that remains is simple and uncomfortable at the same time. If the house is beautiful for everyone who enters, where exactly is your own room? Perhaps you've already noticed this in small details, in the difficulty of directly answering what you truly prefer when someone asks, in the habit of saying it doesn't matter, even when, deep down, it doesn't really matter that much, in the strange feeling of having already agreed with something before even being sure if you actually agreed. These small signs, added up over the years, form a silent pattern, that of someone who has learned to exist more clearly in the perception of others than in their own. And there's something even more subtle hidden in this pattern. When you finally try to occupy space in a relationship, to express a desire, to assert yourself, to say no, an almost physical discomfort can arise, as if you were breaking some unwritten rule, as if any space you claim for yourself has to be taken from another person. But true balance has never worked that way. A relationship where only one side is decorated has never been harmony. It was, in fact, absence disguised as care. There's also a quieter version of this, which appears in the small choices of everyday life. In the movie, you agree to watch even when you don't want to. In the dish you order just because it goes with what the other person chose. In the weekend, plans you accept, even when tired, because refusing would seem to unbalance something that only exists in your head. Each of these choices, in isolation, seems too small to matter, but together, over the years, they outline a person who has learned to detach themselves from their own preferences, one decision at a time. Recognizing that you've faded into obscurity within your own relationships isn't a sign of weakness. It's the first step toward rebuilding the forgotten space. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose addresses precisely this point: how Libra can maintain its natural ability to create harmony without fading into it, giving back space to its own desires without guilt or fear of unbalancing those around it. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And here's the paradox you may never have heard named as such. The sharper your radar is for the imbalances of others, the more deaf it becomes to your own. It's not an isolated flaw. It's the same mechanism working in both directions, only with completely different powers. Imagine a telescope built to see distant galaxies, capable of capturing light that has traveled thousands of years to reach it. An impressive, precise, almost magical instrument. But this same telescope, however powerful, has no focus for what is right in front of it, just centimeters from the lens. That is exactly the nature of the gift that Libra carries. Immense reach outwards, a blind spot inwards. This is not a character flaw. It's the price of a gift that was never calibrated for both sides. And perhaps the most honest moment in this whole story is to admit danger never needed a dramatic event to exist. It only needed your continued silence, and it has had exactly that for long enough. Think about how many times you've been able to predict with almost unsettling accuracy the emotional outcome of someone else's situation, as if you could see before anyone else the exact moment when something was going to go wrong. This kind of clarity is usually considered a rare gift, and indeed it is. But this same clarity, turned inward, often becomes a stumbling block. Simple questions like, what do I really want, or is this good for me, often go unanswered, not because you're incapable of answering, but because the instrument you use to see others has never been pointed with the same intensity at yourself. And it's curious to realize that this isn't a sign of weakness, nor of a lack of self-awareness. It's structural. It's the direct result of a lifetime training a single sense in a single direction. The good news, although difficult to accept immediately, is that instruments can be recalibrated. The same care you've learned to offer others can, with practice and intention, be redirected without losing the sensitivity that makes you who you are. It's also worth noting how this blind spot disguises itself as a virtue, being flexible, being easy to get along with, never causing problems. All of this sounds like praise, and often it is genuine, but there's a fine line between real flexibility and a lack of self-disguised as good interpersonal skills. And it's precisely on this fine line that the paradox lies. The more you are praised for never causing friction, the less chance you have of realizing that perhaps you should cause at least a little more. This blind spot doesn't resolve itself, and the more time passes, the more natural it seems. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose was written thinking precisely about this type of Libra, the one who sees everything but themselves. It teaches you to recalibrate this same perceptive instrument inward without losing the sensitivity that makes you who you are, and without transforming that sensitivity into a burden that only you carry. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And perhaps the turning point doesn't need to be dramatic. Perhaps it starts small, almost silently, in the same silent way that the weariness itself arrived. One day you notice your own discomfort before automatically softening it. Another day you choose to say what you feel before adjusting your tone to please others. None of these choices breaks the harmony you cherish so much. They simply include you within it, finally, as part of the balance, and not just as the one who sustains it for others. Installing a sensor in your own room doesn't mean turning off the others. It means giving you back the right to also be notified, to also be cared for, to also deserve the same thoughtful attention that you give, without asking for anything in return, to everyone around you. The house continues to welcome those who enter. Only now, for the first time in a long time, it also welcomes those who live in it. There is nothing selfish about heeding your own alarm. There is, however, a more complete way of being Libra, one that sees others without fading into itself, that creates harmony without forgetting to be a part of it. And perhaps that is the true nature of the balance you have always sought. Not the perfect silence around you, but the quiet courage to also listen to what is happening within you. There's a subtle but crucial difference between maintaining peace and disappearing to maintain it. The first is a rare, almost artisanal gift that few signs manage to wield with the same delicacy. The second is a cost that no one should pay alone, for so long, without even realizing they were paying it. Recognizing this difference doesn't erase what has already happened, but it changes from now on what you choose to do with your own sense of self. Perhaps the most beautiful image isn't that of a perfect house, without a single crack, pleasing everyone all the time. Perhaps it's that of a real, lived-in house, where every room, including yours, has light, sound, and attention. Where balance ceases to be a spectacle for others to see and finally becomes a place where you also live. What if, from today onwards, your highly precise radar began to include you on the list of people who deserve attention, not as a grandiose project full of abrupt changes, but as a fine-tuning, one choice at a time? That alone already changes the story, because a sensor that finally sees both sides ceases to be a blind spot and becomes finally the complete gift it always was. And perhaps that, in the end, is the true invitation behind everything that has been said so far, not to abandon the gift of perceiving the world around you, but to finally include yourself within it, as someone who also deserves to be perceived, also deserves to be heard, also deserves real balance, not just the appearance of it.